To give us the opening remarks, let me call on Dr. Julie Maydado, collaborator in the Care for Sea Megacities project, assistant head in the Regional Climate Systems Laboratory of the Manila Observatory, featured scientist of the month of the WCRP Academy, and lead author of the IPCC 7th Assessment Report. Doc Julie, the virtual floor is yours.
Thanks, Lina. Let me just share my screen. Just a moment. Sorry, I think my computer's. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our participants joining us in today's webinar. Just really give a brief introduction about our project, Care for Sea Megacities. It is funded by the Asia Pacific Network for Global Change Research, or APN for short, and it is implemented by the Cordex Southeast Asia Group. So our thanks really again to the WCRP Academy for leading this webinar series and inviting our team to join. Our motivation for this project is really to understand better how changes in weather and climate extremes would look like and would mean, and what would that mean for cities in Southeast Asia. As is the case for any cities all over the world, cities in Southeast Asia have also been expanding with increasing population. And urban development must be guided by robust and localized climate information to enhance their resilience in the face of these climate hazards. It's really important that the climate information that we produce from this project is relevant and useful for effective climate action. So key to this project that we determined at the very onset of the project is the engagement and partnership we have with the local stakeholders. And to be able to facilitate this co-production, we invited our local stakeholder partners and planners in particular from our respective cities to participate in the inception workshop, which we held at the very beginning of the project. Together, we have been able to identify the priority climate hazards per city as listed here. You would see them for each of the city in this slide. And then we were able to identify what are the common hazards across the different cities. And therefore, our approach, finally, to be able to determine, the hazards, to address the hazards related to extreme heat and heavy rainfall is to design a coordinated experimental framework to look into these hazards together as a group. We are continuously learning and building our capacity in this endeavor. And we really appreciate this webinar series, especially as we are now also preparing and designing the final workshop, which will happen in July in Manila, Philippines this year. And we are also preparing the other data and information products that we would like to share and give to our local stakeholder partners, and that we're also making sure that we are able to effectively communicate these information to our stakeholder partners. And that's all from me. Thank you so much, and I guess let's go get to the main event of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc Julie. So without further ado, at this point, I would now like to call on Chris Leonard, co-chair of the Academy Scientific Steering Group, to introduce our guest speaker for today. Chris?
Thanks, Diner. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this last session. Yeah, I'd like to introduce Sarika to you, if you're new, this is the third time for some folk. But Sarika Govender works at the Climate System Analysis Group, University of Cape Town, here in South Africa. She has a master's degree in environmental management from University of the Free State, and her focus was on the management of food waste. For her MSc. She also has a postgraduate certificate in education and has developed a lot of course material on science communications that has been accredited through South African accreditation bodies. Sarika also runs our winter school, which is happening next week. So it's really good she could get some time for this. And in our winter school on navigating climate risk, uh, facilitates about 30 people every year. And we try and think about how does climate risk affect different sectors, and it includes how do we communicate that risk to various communities. So thank you, Sarika, again. I'll hand over to you, and thanks everyone. I trust this will be a really cool session for us all.
Thanks, Chris, and thank you to WCRP Academy for having me. Okay, so today's session is actually quite exciting for me. I hope it's going to be exciting for you as well. And it's about communication and presentation. Now, I am particularly passionate about this topic because in the past few years, as I've been working with physical climate scientists, I found that they produce like amazing work, absolutely incredible work. And I feel like, scientific information is pointless if it's not going to be used, if it's not going to, reach the targeted audience. So today we're going to speak about the objectives. What are you going to get out of today's session? We're going to very quickly go into an activity. We're going to talk about the communication mindset, the art of listening, delivery techniques, and PowerPoint tips that you would already have come across, but it will just be a reminder, and the importance for you to practice. So a good, effective presenter knows who they're talking to. Are you talking to a class filled with bored teens or a seasoned panel of experts? By knowing exactly who you're talking to, you can tailor your presentation specifically to your audience, making it more dynamic and memorable. For example, if you're presenting at a microbiology conference, you won't have to define any scientific terms that are well known in the field. If you're speaking to a less informed audience, welcome to the worst presentation ever. Because if you are presenting like that, the only result that you're going to get is a room full of sleeping people or people scrolling on their phones. Okay, so that is what we're not going to do. We're not doing that. Okay, so what we're going to do today, our objectives. We are going to understand the core principles of effective communication presentation. We're going to learn how to apply techniques to engage diverse audiences, because when we speak, we are not speaking to just one group of people from one background who speak the same language. We're often speaking to people from very diverse backgrounds. We're going to learn how to deliver clear, confident, and persuasive messages. And we're also going to become coaches. We're going to coach others in developing their own skills. So these objectives are designed to help you both be a better communicator and a more confident trainer. Okay, so we're going right into the activity. I have some options, okay? These are some topics that you could use in your activity. So what you're going to do is you're going to take out your phone or your iPad or whatever other device that you have, and you're going to record yourself for 60 seconds, okay? 1 minute. And one of my colleagues from the WCRP Academy is going to keep a timer, and they're going to start and stop that timer. So what you're going to do is you're going to switch on your video, you're going to record yourself on your chosen topic, and you're going to speak on that topic for 60 seconds. Okay, so if you had to choose something like what superpower would you choose to have, you will think about your superpower, you will elaborate about your superpower, and you will have to fill up that 60-second time. Okay, you're also free to choose your own topic, but this is entirely up to you. Okay, so are we ready?
Mm.
Okay, can we start the timer in 3, 2, 1?
What accomplishment am I most proud of? At the moment, I can't think of one singular accomplishment, or one singular event, but I do think what I am most proudest of is the ability to be able to
Sorry, the speaker is muted now. Speaker, you are muted.
Okay, our time is up and we were all muted so that we could make our own videos. Our videos are for self-reflection. So you're not going to share them with us. They're entirely for you, for your use. Okay, so we're moving on. We're keeping our videos to ourselves, and we're moving on to the communication mindset because communicating is an entire mindset shift. Okay, we're shifting away from certain ideas and concepts that we have in our minds. Now, the first one is a shift from self-consciousness to audience consciousness. So a common reason why people get nervous when communicating is because they focus a lot on themselves. So what are people going to think of me? What are people going to think about how I look? About my voice, about my accent. I don't know. I'm South African and my accent might sound weird to some people. And this self-consciousness increases anxiety and it actually hinders your effective communication. So the mindset shift that we're going to work towards is instead of worrying about how you appear, instead of focusing internally, you're focusing externally at the audience. So you're going to ask yourself questions like, how am I going to serve my audience? When you shift your attention from yourself to your audience, you no longer have space to worry about yourself. You no longer have space for that nervousness because now you are audience centered. And the simple shift would not only reduce your anxiety, but make you more present and engaged with your audience. The next one is to stop rambling, okay? Being clear and concise. One of the biggest challenges in communicating is knowing how to keep things brief without losing your audience. So many of us fall into the trap of talking in circles. So we'll say something and then we'll come back and be like, yeah, okay, so as I said, and we still keep on going on the same point. So a mindset shift that we can use is to start a conversation with a clear purpose. So you can keep yourself on track by saying or starting a sentence with the one thing is. So the one thing we need to know is that a mindset shift will change your life. And you stop there. Okay? So the one thing. And this approach is going to help you focus on key messages and to keep those key messages concise. And it will ultimately help your audience stay engaged because you're not rambling about the same thing, again and again. Next is don't let negative feedback hold you back. So, a big obstacle is the fear of negative feedback. I know a lot of people have this worry. We worry about what others think, and it often holds us back from speaking freely and authentically. Um, I think almost every workshop that we have, there must be one or two people who are afraid to speak up because they think that they're going to be seen as, as less than. They're going to be seen as, as silly. Like, why are you asking such a silly question? Like, everybody knows the answer. But the mindset shift is to embrace feedback from those who are with you. So if you receiving negative, so-called negative feedback, you're going to take it with a positive mindset. You're going to help you're going to make you grow. Okay, you're going to grow from any so-called negative feedback. And if you have people who are just negative, you're going to take that with a pinch of salt because we all know that we're going to come across positive people in life and negative people in life, and everyone is just different. And by recognizing that not everyone will understand your journey, you can better focus on your own growth and improvement without being paralyzed by judgment. Okay. And lastly, for this section is to immerse yourself in communication practice. Now, this is very important because improving your communication is not something that you can get from one presentation. It's an entire way of being. Every time you come across something about communication, you're going to read it or watch it, and you're going to continuously improve. So, effective communication does not happen by accident. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a skill that requires constant practice and immersion. So, one thing that we can use is talking to ourselves. Talking to ourselves is a powerful tool, whether you're rehearsing your presentation, brainstorming ideas, or just having a conversation in front of a mirror. The more you immerse yourself in the act of communication, the better you're going to become. Okay, so we are going to move on to listening. The art of listening. Now, listening can sometimes be difficult, especially when you are giving a presentation or you're facilitating and you're thinking about what you're going to say, you're thinking about the time, you have so many things to think about. You're thinking about, am I getting this right? Am I, on track with my presentation? But the art of listening is something that you will have to practice as well. So when you're listening, listen actively. You're going to maintain eye contact with the person that you're listening to so that they know that you're engaged. Eliminate distractions. You are not going to be listening to someone with your phone in your hand or any other sort of distractions. Ask clarifying questions. So when someone is speaking to you and you ask a clarifying question, it makes them feel heard. It makes them feel like what they have to say is important. Summarize what has been said so you know that you understood exactly what their message was. And in person, you're going to give feedback through body language. You're going to, use your body. You're going to nod. You're going to smile, or, positive body language. You're going to, actively listen. Delivery techniques. So there are many techniques to how you deliver your presentation. For one, you're going to sound interested. If you are not interested in your topic and you are just, not passionate about something, please don't do it, because the audience will immediately get your vibe. Don't learn your presentation word for word. People can tell when you're speaking from the heart. When someone speaks, learns their presentation word for word, it sounds rehearsed, it sounds robotic, and it's just not nice to listen to. Voice modulation. So voice modulation is about varying your volume. So sometimes you have to speak loudly to get understood, and sometimes you have to speak softly. Your tone, your pace, your pitch. So sometimes things are interesting when they're spoken like really quickly, and sometimes you have to speak slowly to get your point across. So voice modulation is something that you can practice, and it's obviously something that will happen over time. Body language, use your hands, you look more excited, you automatically will sound more excited. Use your body, use your head, use your face, and do not stand at the podium like a robot, just giving your talk and getting it done. And I mean, there are instances where, yes, that is acceptable, where you're standing at the podium, but you can still use your body to get your point across. And filler words. This is a big one. This I had to work on for a long time. So it's not easy at first to get comfortable with a pause, to just. So you tend to use filler words like those filler words come in, under the radar. You don't even know that you are using them. I promise you, if you are someone who uses filler words, you have no idea how many times you've said them, because they come in unconsciously. So delivery techniques is something that you're going to constantly work on. I am constantly working on everything. I should have said from the start that I am not an expert, purely because, as I said, in having a communication mindset, it's something that you continuously work on. So it's not something you can develop overnight. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of practice. And I will never be an expert in being an expert speaker, but I can share what I've learned, and you can share them too. So I'm sure most of you have heard of Maya Angelou. She was a famous poet and activist, and I absolutely love this quote. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that this is so deep and so brilliant. And it's something that I remind myself of every now and then. Knowing your audience. So knowing your audience is something that we've spoken about already in our previous session. It's about tailoring your message to different stakeholders, understanding audience needs, expectations, and resistance, and using language that is relevant. So effective trainers adapt their style to suit the audience. Listening is just as important as speaking. Now, this is extremely important, or has been extremely important for us working on the African continent, because we are not just, working with people from one country from one background who speak one language. We are often speaking to different people from different languages. I mean, even at CSAG, in our team, we have people from many different places. And you have to often tailor your language. You have to tailor your pronunciation. You have to tailor your pace because you are going to speak slower so that people understand you. Very often, if you're speaking to someone whose first language is not English, or English might even be their third or fourth or fifth language. So it takes some people time to understand what you're saying, and you need to be very aware of this. You need to use language that is relevant to them. So when you are using a lot of jargon, you're going to have to actively be aware of this, and you have to actively, tailor your words to your audience. And I think this slide is just extremely important. So, gosh, I have said enough, don't you think? Which skill do you feel you need to work on the most? Okay, so I've been talking about a lot of things, delivery techniques and the mindset change and about the audience. So I want you to tell us which of these skills, we've just chosen a few: maintaining eye contact, eliminating filler words, reducing jargon, use of body language, and your pace being too fast or too slow. I used to have that problem for a very long time. I used to speak very fast. And that's because I was so nervous that I just wanted to get it done. But I think I'm much better now. And we have 17, 18, 19 who've responded. And the filler words, yes, as I said, the filler words was a big one for me. Because you're so nervous. You feel like if you pause, people are going to, I don't know, stop listening? Or why is it filler words? If you've chosen that, can you type in the chat to tell us why you feel the need to use filler words? Or secondly, why are you too fast or too slow? I know I used to speak fast because I was so nervous. I just felt like I needed to get it done. Okay, so I'm not going to watch the chat now because we have to move on to preparing a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm sure I can go through this very quickly because it's all things that we should know, but it's really just a recap. So here's a great example. I've picked out a great example, a brilliant example of a beautiful slide that Kiko is going to change now. This is a beautiful slide. It's a great example with beautiful font, with lots of information, and it just looks so cute, don't you think? Don't you think it looks so cute? It is a great example of what not to do. Thank you. We are not doing this. People are going to stop listening to you and they're going to start reading the slide. I can guarantee that because I do it and I know most people do it. What you should do going forward is you are going to accept your nerves, You're going to be open and honest. You're going to, if you don't know a question, an answer, you're going to ask your audience to rephrase. You're going to say you don't know, but you can find out. You're going to use real life examples from your organization. You're going to encourage vulnerability and authenticity by being vulnerable and authentic. And you're going to use a variety of facilitation methods. If you were not here for my previous presentation, you're welcome to watch that on the different types of facilitation methods that you can use. Your slide design, your text is going to be short phrases, bullet points instead of long sentences. We're not using sentences. We're going to choose simple and readable fonts. Kiko, can you change the slide, please? Brilliant. Like Arial or Calibri, and avoid small sizes. You're going to use high contrast and subtle backgrounds, visual aids like charts, graphics, images to prove your point. And then you're going to use infographics. You're going to use clear labels and remove any unnecessary clutter. Now, if you look at this infographic, yes, it does have a lot of it, a lot on it, but it's got a lot of information. And this information is presented very clearly and it can be understood very well. And that's because they've used color. This is from the IPCC AR6 report, and they've used color, they've used little pictures, and there's a very nice key on the right. So you're going to use something like this and it will work very well, as opposed to having a whole paragraph of writing. So you can use this picture and still say everything that you wanted to say in your paragraph. So I think infographics work really well when you have a lot of information. And then lastly, practice. Practice, practice, practice to familiarize yourself with the flow of your session, to get more comfortable with your content, to ensure that you don't miss out any key messages, to find the right balance between content and practical activities, and to help find your pace. Now, a very important thing is not to be inconsiderate to the next speaker by eating into their time. This happens very often in workshops where you have multiple speakers. Speakers don't realize that their presentation is going to take much longer than they had planned, and they often eat into tea breaks, lunch breaks, and into the next speaker's time. Okay, so next we have some reflection questions. But before we do this reflection, I want to know if you could watch your videos. So we're going to take a minute and we are each going to watch our own video that we made. Okay. And then we're going to reflect on what I discussed with you. Okay, you can start now. I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much for that brilliant music. Okay, so now we have watched our video. We know what we need to work on, but also just some reflection questions. What science communication challenge are you dealing with today? Because we all have challenges, nobody's perfect. How often do I check with my audience that my message was understood? And what best practices in science communication have you observed in workshops and conferences you have attended? So, as I said, I am not perfect. I am not an expert and I am continuously learning. So, it would be great if you have found some best practices that you can share with us, or if you have any challenges that you want to discuss, that would also be great. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to either type it in the chat, or you are welcome to put a hand up and unmute yourself and we can discuss it. A good practice that I see often is always having a summary slide at the end of your presentation. Enrico, that is brilliant because we always have so much in our presentations that people often forget what the key messages or the key takeaways are. And having that summary slide at the end, it just brings everything back and it really helps. So you actually go away knowing exactly what those key messages and the key takeaways are. And remember, as a presenter, you have control over the narrative. You are creating a story with your presentation. You are going to guide people through almost like a logical sequence of events. You're going to, if you're presenting your work, you're going to start out, creating the story of your methodology and how you went out about doing this, and then you came to your results, and based on the results, this is what we've concluded. And the story has to end with some good key messages so that people don't actually forget, like, what was it again? What was it about? I think that's actually quite brilliant. Thank you, Enrico. And nobody has any challenges. That is great. Current challenge. Okay. Requested to discuss climate science with a feminist lens, simply saying climate change is due to human activities does not really cut it and feels oppressive. So I learned sensitivity to audience is really important. Yes, 100%. Knowing and just being aware that your audience comes from different cultural backgrounds is very, very important. I know, especially for us in Africa, when we're going just from not even country to country, just from province to province, just understanding, I think we have to be extra sensitive. Think about how sensitive you would be, in your context, and you just added up 10 notches. Good practice. Providing local context and examples to make technical subjects more relatable. Brilliant. Because this also speaks to the principles of adult learning that we did in our first session, in our first webinar, where adults want to feel like they can contextualize something, they can actually relate to something. They don't want some examples that are, up in the air that doesn't, even, it's not even relatable. It doesn't even happen. Like a lot of the time where you'll find, maybe some studies done in Europe and for example, and it's absolutely, not applicable to your local context. So you can't relate to it. As an ECR, one communication challenge I often feel is a lack of confidence because I feel like there are people in the room more qualified than I am to speak about a certain scientific topic. Brilliant. Because because this is something that I struggle with all the time, and a lot of people struggle with it. But I find that when speaking to people who are more knowledgeable about something, if you speak to them and open up to them, they're actually more humble than you would think. They are, like my colleagues are some of the most humble people you will ever come across, and they are brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant. So sometimes you really just have to put yourself out there. You just have to say, or, even if you just say, this is what I found. What do you think about it? But I think you just have to put yourself out there and you just have to do it. There's always going to be someone who knows more about a topic. Even if you are like the most brilliant scientist in your field, there's going to be someone who knows something that's not in your field, or they have a niche that you haven't studied. There's always going to be someone who knows more than you. So you just have to speak to people. I think speak to people. Speak to people one on one to get over that. I'm not over it. I'm just saying. I'm being vulnerable. I'm not over it. It's not easy. And as I said, all these things are, it's not something that you know, you can just get over overnight. Would anyone like to say anything before we wrap up? Because we have one more slide. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Final question. What skill do you commit to improving? So the reason that you recorded yourself at the beginning is to get a baseline. So that was just a baseline of how you speak right now. And based on the presentation, based on the discussions in the chat, you are going to commit to improving one skill. Just work on one thing. And you're going to commit to doing this going forward. Storytelling of scientific finding. Brilliant. Filler words. As I said, I did say the filler words was a big one. I mean, filler words was a big one. I still do it, but not as much as I used to. You know. So with reducing filler words, it's about getting comfortable in the pause. It's okay to pause. It's okay to just stand there for a second or two, calm yourself down, think about what you're going to say, and continue. The audience in those 2 seconds is not going to run away. I promise you, they're not going to run away. When they will run away, I mean, how they, what? They will run away when you are rambling like me, because I'm now talking to myself, or you are not being engaging, or you're talking about things that are not relevant. Immersing myself more in communication techniques or talking slowly. Brilliant. We always all have something to improve on. And as I said, talking slowly was something that I also struggled with. And I think with that, it's finding the reason why you speak fast. And my reason, once I found that my reason was because I was so nervous, I wanted to get it done, I realized that, I need to just calm myself. Also, I felt like if I speak slowly, people are going to disengage. But people disengage if you're speaking too fast and they can't understand you. So that is actually worse. Speaking to people more often. Yes, speak to people more often. Speak to people who know more than you. Speak to people who are from different backgrounds. Speak to people who speak different languages. Speak to yourself. Because if you speak to yourself in the mirror, it's not something I do. I should do that to practice my speaking, but it's just weird. Thinking externally rather than internally and being too self-conscious. I think, you know what, this chat is extremely great because we can all relate to all of these. Like, I'm telling you, I'm relating to every single person because, yes, I worry that people are going to think, like, now, I worry that people are going to think my ears look weird because when I look straight ahead, you can't see my ears. And also, I worry that people find my accent strange. So with time, it gets better. That's all I can say. All I want to tell you is that with time, it gets better, but it's not something that happens overnight. So, any last thoughts before I wrap up? Does anybody want to say anything before I wrap up?
Can I say something?
Yes, thank you.
Actually, my name is Alik, and I'm from Namibia. The thing that you touched on, for me, I was like going through, especially when it comes to being afraid of negative feedback. Most of the time, we do a lot of things, but we cannot share because we are afraid of that. What if I have to present this to Prof. Chris? What will Prof. Chris say? Then I say, let me just leave it. But now, once you said no, don't be afraid of negative feedback, then I said, no, really, this was like talking to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you for being vulnerable and for putting yourself out there on the chat and giving us, your vulnerability. I want you to, when you think that way again, I want you to say to yourself or ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? The worst thing that could happen is he could say, you're on the wrong track. Try something new. And in that way, you've actually taken something almost negative to something positive because he's then directing you to something that you might not have thought of. So just think, what's the worst that could happen? And as I said, if you speak to a lot of people who seem scary or a lot of professors, and if you sit down and speak to them one-on-one, they're actually not as scary as you made them out to be in your head, because they are only scary in your head. I promise you.
Thank you
Anyone
very
else?
much. And it's so true. Thank you very much. And it's so true. Sometimes when you're reading an article from someone that you regard very highly, you said, no, 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 no. But thanks.
And the reason I love this topic and I love the conversation is that I think that everything we're speaking about is so relatable. Like we can all relate to this, whether it's now or whether it's something that we've gone through in the past, it is something that we can relate to. Okay, Dinah, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone who's spent time with us. And thank you for having me. And I hope you have a lovely day further, a lovely evening. Remember that you can email me at any time if you have any questions, if you want help with anything. I am always available. Maybe not always, but I'll make time. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sarika, for sharing your knowledge with us. And of course, thank you so much, everyone, for your participation for today's session. Today's session really helped us better understand the important role of effective communication and presentation, which of course can be applied in our own contexts. We're also reminded that effective communication and presentation requires consideration of our audience and a lot of practice as well. We hope that the concepts, techniques, and reflections shared in this session will help guide us in our own work as researchers, educators, communicators, and future climate leaders.